I had these students. One of them was engineer, super smart couple, and the other one was this guy who was dumb as hell. Well, I told the engineers, do this, and that, and 6-9 months later, they still hadn't got a deal. I told the dumb guy, do this, and that. He said, yes, sir. He went to go do it, and he got himself 2 deals like within a month or 2. To smart people, I always warn them, and I say, your strength is your weakness.
All right, well, let's get going here. So we're here with real estate investor extraordinaire Brayand Ponciano, and also not just real estate investor, but also mindset coach,
yes,
mushroom lover. Let's go into that a little bit later, and mushroom retreat host, and all kinds of different things. We're going to talk about what real estate, mindset,
all
that kind of stuff. Welcome to the show.
Thank you,
Brayand. So first of all, let's get started. Tell us a little bit about you.
So as I said, my name is Brayand. I am a son of immigrant parents. So both of my parents were from Guatemala. I grew up in the south side of Los Angeles. So I grew up in a town called Southgate. A lot of people have heard of the town called Compton, and my town was literally across the train track. So I like to tell people Southgate is like a Mexican Compton. Mm-hmm. The drugs, the gangs, the violence, all that stuff was there. Eventually, we moved to Phoenix, and I've always wanted to be into real estate investing. So slowly but surely, I decided to get into the business. I've been able to create success from that and travel the world and really live life in my own terms, which is what I think most people in this world would love to do at some point, is live their life in their own terms.
You definitely do that. I mean, we've been friends for what, 10 years or something like that?
Right about.
For many things, through a mutual friend, one of your best friends, Casey. And I've been following your journey for many years. And yeah, you make it a point to just like, sometimes you just take off and you're gone for like weeks at a time, or sometimes months at a time.
As much as possible.
Love that, yes. So, now what drives that? Let's talk about the person, Brayand. So what drives that? Are you like just living the life you want, or are you like opposing to something? Are you trying to make a point, or what's driving you living that life that you're living?
I grew up. I like to tell people that I grew up upper lower class, meaning that we lived in the poor neighborhoods. My parents both made a little bit of money, but at least I had my dad, right? I had my mom and my dad, which was very uncommon in my neighborhood. My dad was a good man. He wasn't a cheater or anything like that, but we still grew up in relative poverty, especially to what I saw other people. And I would hear about people travel, and I would see about those type of things, and I always wanted to do it, but I kept on pushing it off. I had this idea in my head that when I start my business, okay, when I buy my first house, when I do my 10 flips, and I kept on pushing it off. Well, eventually, about 9 years ago, my dad got diagnosed with cancer. Now, he passed away 7 years ago, but one of the things that my dad always wanted to do was travel, and he never got a chance to do it. Like, he never got a chance to travel. And once he got diagnosed with cancer and it was terminal, then that was pretty much the last 2 years of his life. And I remember saying, I don't want that to happen to me, where I get to a point where something happens and then I'm not able to do it anymore. So I have to do it right now while I can. And, my dad was one of those people who said, when I retire, I'm going to do that when I get to that point. And, he wasn't out of shape. He wasn't a drinker, a smoker, or anything like that, but he got diagnosed with cancer. And because of the way that he got diagnosed, like, it was just inevitable. By that point, I was already too late in the process to do anything about it. So when my dad was passing away, I said, I'm going to make it a point to really live the life the way that I want, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. Absolutely. And that's been my driving motivator. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. A lot of times people say, my mentor calls it the when I, and they don't do anything. They don't go to the vacations. They don't talk to the people they want to talk to. They don't start the businesses they want to. They don't take the risks that they want to. Hell, you're a dad. I mean, I've realized with my kids that I wasn't able to do everything that I wanted to. When my oldest son is now 20, when he was a baby, I'm like, I'm going to do this. And before you know it, they're 10, 15, and they don't want to hang out with you no more,
That's right. Yeah, that's how most people live their lives. So to say like, oh, I'll do this, I get to it. I mean, heck, I met people that lived there all their life in Arizona. Never been to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I always can go. Yeah. So they never do.
They never do.
Unless you make it a point. Yeah. We like that. We even took our daughter out of school one time for half a year and went traveling around the world, because like, if we don't do it now, 10 years from now, she's not going to want to
No.
go with us anymore.
You know, by the time she gets her, and I've met Sophie when she was, and she's still super beautiful girl. I mean, she was always a cute girl, but you know, now she's a teenager. She's probably talking to boys, may have a boyfriend here or there. Like,
Not yet.
either way, it's coming. It's inevitable, right?
Course,
Once that happens, once they get to that age, even if she doesn't have a boyfriend, she's more interested in hanging out with her friends.
Yeah.
She's more interested in doing that life. You know, once she does have a boyfriend, then she's going to be interested in spending time with him and going to the movies with him and all the stuff that people do. So that's one of those things where if you don't take advantage of it when they're younger, there is going to get a point to where you're not going to be able to because life just happens. And that's what I realized when it came to not just travel, but every other aspect of my life and what it is that I wanted to do. It just so happened that what I wanted to do was travel. And I just remember, like, I was always broke. We didn't even have cable growing up. So when I finally got out of the house, I wanted to have cable, right? Because I'm going to show people that I have money. Stupid. But I used to watch the Travel Channel all the time. That's all. I would just leave it on as much as possible, the Travel Channel. So I would see all these beautiful destinations, and I'm like, I want to go there. I want to do that. Like, that sounds fun. That sounds interesting. Watching people like Andrew Zimmerman and different people like that. What's his name? Bodain, whatever the fuck his name was. Yeah. So I really, really enjoyed that style of traveling. Like, let me go get to know the people. Let me go eat at the local spots. Let me go stay at the local spots. And for you, you know, you follow me enough to know that's all I do.
That's something I could not do. I mean, I go every time I go south of the border, I go get sick from my stomach. So I love going there. We love Michelle's from Honduras, right? So you love going. Your family's from Guatemala. So it's right next door. So we love going down there, but I just get sick every time. So I don't do street food because I can't. I know. I do. If I do street foods, I'm in bed for the next 3 days. So it's just.
And it happens. You know, I've actually gotten, the first time that I got really, really sick traveling was in Guatemala. And as you mentioned, my family's from there. I've been there a few times. I was eating street food. I caught some type of bug, and I was in the toilet for 5 days, and it sucked because, you know, out of my 2-week vacation, 5 days I'm in the toilet. But because of that, I found a drug that helps you with that, so it kills all the bacteria in your stomach. So basically, I've now travel like crazy. I have eaten stuff that's gotten me sick, but I take the little pill right before I go to bed. I wake up the next day and I'm all good.
I need to know what that is.
I'll put you onto that.
Talking about that, so now let's transition just so quickly. So you grew up over here, like upper lower class. You mentioned
lower class.
Upper lower class. That's an interesting observation. And then what got you into real estate?
Well, because I was upper lower class, there was nobody around us had money. So everybody in our church was poor. Everybody in our neighborhood was poor. I was on the free lunch program when I was growing up, and a lot of the people were there. It was very rare that somebody in my school was not on the free lunch program. So I've always grew up very, very poor. My parents from Guatemala, there's a big Guatemalan community in Los Angeles, and a lot of those people were people that they grew up with. There was this guy named Brayand who was a semi-successful guy. He did car sales and stuff. His mom was a lot more successful, and she was a real estate agent. And I just remember that I grew up very poor, where we had community pools. And even a lot of our communities, the community pools didn't work. So if you met somebody who had a house with a pool, they were like rich. They were like rich, right? So this lady lived in a house with a pool. And it always stuck to me that real estate equates money. There is something. And then as I grew older, I noticed that every person with money always wants to be involved in real estate in one way or the other. So I would stay up watching Carlton Sheet infomercials when I was like 15, 16, 17, 2 in the morning, you know, just wishing one day I could flip a house, wishing one day I could do that. You know, the thought of making $10,000, $20,000 in a deal was like life-changing for me because, you know, if realistically speaking, at that point, my parents probably made 20 or so thousand. My mom probably made about 20 or so $1,000 a year.
Wow. Carlton Sheets, blast from the past. Yeah, actually, not too long ago, I tried to Google if he's still alive, and I couldn't find a single thing about it.
I doubt it.
I don't know, but I watched his infomercials too back in the days. It was Carlton Sheets, it was Ron LeGrand, and Ron and I are friends now. But and then there was, John Burley was out there with infomercials for a time, and then there was some other guy that was like with bunch of naked girls on a boat.
Yeah, I remember that guy too.
Not naked, but like
yeah.
bikini girls on a boat. Those were the guys up there, and I remember them all, and I remember thinking the same thing. So pretty cool. So if anyone knows if Colton Sheet's still alive, please put it into the comments, because I'm really curious, because that's kind of like the first time I have a visual of him with like the suit on or something like that.
Well, what interests me about him was that his program was called No Money Down.
Right.
So I didn't have any money.
Right.
Once again, I grew up poor. Robert Allen, No Money Down, was the first real estate book that I ever read.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to meet him at the events, and it was really cool for him to pull me off to the side and said, "Hey, man, I really liked your story, and I would like to work with you in writing a book and stuff like that." So, Carlton Sheet stood out to me, though, because of the infomercials. Just being up late at night, really had nothing to do, had nothing going on, and hearing that I could do real estate with no money or no credit was amazing to me, because I had no money or no credit.
Right. And then now I remember your first fix and flip, because I actually walked that house. For some reason. We I think you invited us to come over. You had an open house or something like that. So that was a cool house, and you put some really interesting sinks in that place.
Yes.
That actually, I think, made it a little more difficult to sell the house or something, because like glass sinks or something like that.
No, those sinks were cool. Like, people really liked those sinks. Yeah. Cool. The crazy thing, and take this into, this is my first house that I flipped. I got in over my head. So I took a 2-1 and I made it into a 3-2. So now I'm pulling permits and I'm doing shit and I'm doing stuff that was way above what I should have done. But luckily for me, through my journey of real estate, I learned how to network. And I learned to make money for other people. So as a wholesaler, I never looked at myself making money. I wanted to make money for you, the investor. And as long as I can make you money and then I get paid a few grand in between, then that would work for me. Well, after doing that for a few years, when I started doing flips, I could just turn to my buyers and be like, "Hey, can you guys help me? Can you guys contact me with contractors or whatever," right? So anyway, yeah, I did that house. I bought it because it was right across the street from a school. And in my mind, I thought I was going to sell it to a family with kids. I made the master room. I made the kids room. I made all that stuff. I ended up selling it to 2 lesbians with dogs, And the whole point of that is that I had this whole grand idea of who was going to buy my house, how they were going to use it. And then at the end of the day, like, the kids room became the dogs room, and, they had no kids. The school had no impact on them buying it. But yeah, it came out very interesting. The sinks were actually a big selling point for that property. Good. Yeah.
Very good. I remember those specifically. So you went from wholesaling to fix and flip?
Yes.
Learned your lessons and a bunch of things there.
Yes.
But now you're bringing up a whole new batch of leaders in the space, which I find really, really cool. And you actually focus a lot more on mindset coaching with them.
That is correct.
Let's talk about that. So how did that transition happen? Why, how, and why is this a niche that you just, boom, exploded and blooming in?
Sure. So, as you know from finding success in real estate yourself, once people catch wind of that, everybody and their mama says, "Show me, show me, show me," right? At some point, you're going to have to start charging for that, because people take advantage of free information.
Sure.
They take advantage of you and everything else. So as I started charging for mentorship, one of the common things that I noticed was that it wasn't the information that I gave people, it was their mindset. And one of my first, I had these students. One of them was engineer, super smart couple, and the other one was this guy who was dumb as hell. And I liked the guy, but when it came to like book smart, spelling, all that stuff, he was dumb. And it's not a knock against him. He was just not very bright in that end, especially compared to these engineers, right? Well, I told the engineers, do this, and that. And 6-9 months later, they still hadn't got a deal. I told the dumb guy, do this, and that. He said, yes, sir. He went to go do it, and he got himself 2 deals like within a month or 2. I realized that it was them getting in their own way by trying to overanalyze things. And to smart people, I always warn them, and I say, your strength is your weakness. Because your strength has gotten you this far. Like, it got you your education and stuff like that. And really, like, for reals, anybody with a college degree, that just means that you were able to memorize shit. That doesn't mean you know anything. 100%. That means that you were able to memorize it enough to take the test. And that's really all it is. But nonetheless, though, I realized that I gave them information and then they processed it. Well, I know he says to do this, but let me tweak it this way. Let me do it this way. Let me do it, adjust it. Where the dumb guy, he just followed my advice. Like that's all he did. So I started realizing that that's what people really were lacking in this business. And I had mentioned, I have a student named Ray Spencer. He's super successful now. Really, really, his name is growing out there. And he was the first student that I transferred from real estate to mindset. Because when he first hired me, he'd done deals already. So he had been in the industry for about a year or two at this point. He had already done deals, but he was going through a dry spell. And it was like 6 or 9 months now that he hadn't done a deal. And he couldn't figure out why. And every deal that he had kept on falling apart. And he couldn't figure out why. So I would give him all these techniques, real estate techniques, and he was like, I know that, I've done that, I've tried that. So eventually I was like, well, that's not the problem then. The problem is something else. When I started helping him and I saw how much that shift made for him from before the mindset training to after the mindset training, I said, whoa, that's a need here. There's a huge need here because there's tons of people. What a
story Ray has. I mean, what a story this guy has.
Yeah.
He wasn't he in prison for a
he
long
was
time?
He was in prison for a very long time.
Solitary confinement for multiple years.
Yep.
And almost lost his mind
Yep.
on there. And then coming out of that and having that 180 turn and now being a successful entrepreneur, contributed to society. I mean, and I heard his story. I was like, I went home to my daughter and I told her, like, you will never have to complain anything in your life ever again, period.
Our kids have no idea how good they have it.
Yes.
And which is good. As parents, we want that. We don't want them to deal with the bullshit, right? But, and this is something that I always tell people, is you can't compare yourself to other people because you don't know what they went through. So somebody might be like, and I'm just making shit up, but let's say me and you are brand new, and I know that we're brand new because we both went to the same seminar, and I'm like, it's been 6 months and I haven't got a deal, but Jack over here, he's got 2 deals. Like, what the fuck? That has nothing to do with you. Like, I mean, with me personally, because I don't know what you went through. I have no idea what your past is. I have no idea what you had to go through to get to that area. And somebody like Ray, with his backstory that you just mentioned, if you're able to get past that, you are now equipped mentally with such a toughness that really gets you there. But the problem with Ray was he was too tough for his own good. He was so hard-headed that he's just going to keep on hitting the same wall, even though it wasn't getting him anywhere. Mm-hmm. So when I finally helped him, I told the very next guy that wanted to hire me for coaching, I said, I just tell you what, like, I'm not coaching you in real estate. I'll answer questions, like if you have deals that you're working on or whatever, but my coaching is going to have absolutely nothing to do with real estate. And from there, I just kept on progressing, because one of the things I realized is that there's tons of people out there showing you how to make money. Tons. And you can, and real estate is just one niche. And within the real estate niche, there's a whole bunch of other micro niches that you can get into. But what I realized was there was nobody out there teaching you how to process this information, how to use the right information. And I always use the example of your mindset. Your mind is a mental garden, because you can give me the right information, which are seeds, right? You're going to throw those seeds. I can pay for coaching, and now you're going to help me water these seeds. But if I'm not pulling the weeds from my garden, my plant may or may not even give fruit. And if it does give fruit, they're going to be so small that I'm not going to be happy with it anyway. Because, I garden, I do bonsai trees and stuff like that. Weeds are the biggest killers of any crop, because they suck all the nutrients that are supposed to go there. So your mental garden, if your soil is not ready, if your soil isn't prepared, if you haven't tilled it, if you haven't turned it, if you haven't got rid of all those weeds, you can throw all the information that you want and you can water it all you want, but it's not going to grow.
Self-sabotage.
It is.
Killers. You got to fail again and again, because your mindset doesn't allow you to get through to the other side.
Yes, and that's the thing, is like I realized that from my personal experience, so I grew up in the neighborhood that I did, a lot of gang, a lot of violence, a lot of stuff like that. And a lot of, I think the worst out of all of those things that I dealt with when I was a kid was the poverty mindset that was instructed to me. Mm-hmm. Not only from my parents, from my teachers, from society, and everybody in my culture. They were just very, very small-minded, very negative when it came to doing anything outside of working a regular job. Now, once I started working for myself, I realized that I could only get so far, and I was seeking for help, and I found my mentor, Mr. Jeff Fagan, who talks about mindset, right? And he was the COO of what's his name, T. Harv Eker,
Right.
from Peak Potentials Training back when they were super huge. So he teaches a lot of the same methods, and I came to him to understand how my mind worked with money. Because I understood at some point, and I don't know how I understood it, but I understood that mentally I was getting in my own way. Mentally, I was the one causing it. It wasn't any other thing than just like the BS that I told myself here. So from dealing with him year after year after year after year, I started noticing these changes, and other people started noticing these changes. So when I really started to sit back and say, I know people want me to teach them real estate, but if I give you the seeds and I charge you to water those seeds, knowing goddamn well that your garden is messed up and it's not going to give you, bear you fruit, I felt like I was stealing from people. Mm-hmm. Like I felt like I was robbing them. And what's crazy is, as a coach, you know who's full of S and who's not. You know when somebody says, I'm committed for sure, you could look in their eyes and be like, all right, man, whatever. You and everybody else. But then when somebody comes that's really, really committed, the only difference is up here. The only difference is whether they believe. So that's where I really started focusing on that particular aspect of it.
So what kind of things do you have people go through in order to change their mindsets and solve those issues?
So what I deal with primarily is, number one is get to know yourself. Because a lot of times we chase stuff that we don't even really want, because other people have told us. So let me use education for an example. So many people want to go get a college degree, a university degree, because their mom, sister, grandma, society has told them it was a good thing. Now, you're an educated man. You graduated from there. You know that most of these people that graduate with these degrees don't ever even work on that field. Like most of them. So you take a whole bunch of debt, you take a whole bunch of stuff. How much time, energy, money, and everything that you put into getting your degree, right? You go there and you're chasing this dream that other people have told you. And at the end of the day, you're not even happy. You work.
It's so easy to fall into that trap. Like we literally had this conversation in our family yesterday, because our daughter, Sophia, as you know, is 15, is a ninth grader. So she's a freshman in high school, and she's in the top high school. She's in the top classes. She's at the top of the class and everything. And yet friends of her, the parents, they're already touring colleges and doing this summer program, that summer program. And it almost, if you're not careful, it puts pressure on you to do the same thing.
Yep.
And sometimes yesterday, we're like, hold our hand up and say like, hold on a second. We're grooming our daughter to really not want a job. Mm-hmm. Now, if she wants a job, she can have a job, and she should have a job for a few years to see how it sucks to have a job.
How much it sucks, for sure.
And then she can step out, but also to learn some things, to perhaps work in a big company and learn how big companies operate, so that she can take those principles and build her own big company or so. But at the same time, what are we really trying to accomplish here? And we needed to really reset ourselves, because it's so easy to have all the frenziness and the busyness of everyone else influence you into the same thing without even thinking, what's the outcome that you actually want? Yep. And for our daughter, the outcome that we want is for her to have the options to pursue what she wants. Mm-hmm. Right? She's already well educated. She's already interested in real estate. She's already interested in flipping land. This summer, we're going to start her flipping land. She's already read Rich Dad Poor Dad over Christmas by her own initiative. Yeah. She's like, I want to read something, right? She already is engaged in conversation. She already understands economics and so on. But the point is, I want her to be in a position when she graduates high school that if she wants to go to Harvard, she has a realistic chance.
Yeah.
So we're all putting options together, but we're not putting her in a different plan. But in order to do that, it requires a whole bunch of independent thinking, and most people they're just pushed into mass thinking.
That's what people don't have, and this is what separates me from everybody else, is because I do whatever the hell I want to do, regardless of how it looks, regardless of who agrees with it. But the only thing worse than going down the wrong road is going down the wrong road enthusiastically. Right. So like thinking you're doing the right thing. And you, once again, consider universities. You spend all this time, energy. You're like, yeah, everybody's high-fiving you. Society's telling you you're awesome because you got a master's degree or whatever the hell you got. And now you get to where you're like, this sucks. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. You spend all that time. It's like chasing after a beautiful woman, and then you find out she sucks in bed, or she doesn't cook, or she doesn't clean, or she's not trusting, or she's annoying, or whatever. Those are all these things that we go through. So in life for ourselves, the number one thing that I focus, or the first thing that I focus on, fuck your mindset. That's the name of my program. The number one thing that I focus is figure out who you are. What do you, before we even get to writing goals, like I don't care what your goals are. How about you figure out who you are first? And because most of those goals that you have are not even your goals. Most of those goals have nothing to do with what's really going to make you happy.
And who you are means what?
Who you are means, what do you want to do without the influence of other people? Who do you want to be without the influence of other people? What really makes you happy? Why do you want what you want? And like, what do you want to begin with? Because you ask that to many people, they can't even tell you. And then once the people that tell you, like, yeah, here's what I want, if you ask them, why do you want it? Even less people can tell you. That all that influences who you are, which then influences the way you look. So if you believe that going to Harvard, like let's say that you are the parents that instilled that into Sophia, and you're like, you have to go to Harvard, Hope's got to go to Harvard, and then she applies and she doesn't get accepted. Now she's heartbroken over something that's probably not even going to matter anyway. Some degree that she's probably not even going to use anyway. So that's the big thing, is that you're spending so much time, but getting to know who you are is who you are without the influence of everybody else, your society, your culture, your religion, your teachers, everything else. And we all have those labels. You're a German man, which means that you're supposed to automatically like beer, right?
That's right. And I happen to like it too. But,
no, of course. And I mean, I've never met a German who doesn't like beer. I'm just saying those are kind of these things that we're going. You're a Latin. Look, because I'm Latin myself, I always say our women brag about their men by how hardworking they are. Look at my husband. He's so hardworking. He goes to work at 5 a.m, comes back home at 6 p.m. He's so hardworking. That's how they brag. So as a man, you're conditioned to work hard. You're conditioned to brag about working with your hands and doing those type of things, which in reality, as we know now, like that kind of limits your growth and what you're supposed to do. So I get that out of the way with my students. And then really what we focus on past that is, once you figure out who you are and what you really want, how do we remove these old programs that are in your mind? Because most people, like you said, are go on autopilot.
Right.
So they don't want to think about it. Your mind, our mind is programmed to go on autopilot. This is why people can do like visual illusions and stuff, because your eyes want to take the shortcut there. They see this, they're like, oh, I already know what it is. They fill in the blank and then they kind of move on with it. But these old programmings are there from our parents, society, teachers, and stuff like that. So as I mentioned, when I was growing up where I grew up with, the violence and the drugs and all that stuff was there, but the worst thing that I got from there was that poor mentality that told me that I needed to work hard, that I needed to hustle, that I needed to be the first guy in, the last guy out, that if I wasn't working with my hands, if I wasn't sweating for my bra, then I wasn't making any money. And that was a limited mindset. That was a limiting belief. So teaching people, hey, this is not yours. You didn't come up with this. Somebody else made this up. Probably somebody who didn't know what the hell they were talking about. More than likely your parents or other people that had influence of you when you were a kid. This is now affecting your life because you believe this. And the primary example that I always use with people is, people love to say it takes money to make money. Mm-hmm. And that is a bunch of BS. Now, if you're poor and your parents told you that and teachers told you that and everybody told you that, and you're like me where you don't have any money, you're like, well, if it takes money to make money, I guess I'm screwed. I guess I'm never going to make any money. Once you learn that that's not your thought, that didn't come from you, that came from somebody else, probably, like I said, people that didn't know what they were talking about, and you see how it's affecting you, once you learn how to remove it and replace it, so let's change it takes money to make money to it takes creativity to make money. Well, that's a whole different way of thinking. Now opportunities that once seemed too good to be true, now you're like, well, I guess I can flip houses with no house, with no money down. I guess I can flip a land deal and make 10 grand. I guess I can create $1,000 a month passive income by structuring a deal a certain way. That is the main focus of the program, is to remove these old programmings that are holding you back, that a lot of times cause self-sabotage. That's the number one thing. I know that you see it with your students.
Right,
You give them the
absolutely.
stuff, they have the potential, they don't do what they're supposed to do. They pay you thousands of dollars and they still don't do the things that they committed to doing that are laid out right in front of them. Something as simple as returning a phone call, calling the seller, calling the buyer, sending out that marketing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we have to put lots of measures into our coaching program to make sure that people actually do those things because their mindset limitations may sometimes have them be paralyzed when there's they don't send out offers.
Yep.
I mean, heck, even our friends Casey and Courtney, right?
Yeah, they went through that
They
too.
went through that too. They had offers sitting on the table for 6 months before they finally went and made them. Like you request somebody, you send somebody a letter, ask them, they call you back, they want an offer, and the only reason you don't make those offers is because something internally holds you from making those offers.
Well, and what it is your
yourself.
internal beliefs.
Yeah.
And here's the big one that people don't ever like to admit, but it holds everybody back. They don't feel worthy.
They don't feel worthy.
They don't feel worthy. And we struggle with this, even people in your level and my level, because initially they don't feel worthy making $5,000 for just flipping a piece of paper. Then they get comfortable with that, but now 20 grand's out of the question. Now, okay, I get comfortable doing 5-figure deals, now 6-figure deals. Ooh, 100,000 off a piece of land. I don't know if that makes sense. And then you continuously grow and grow and grow. Even when you get to the 7, 8, 9-figure mark, there's always the next level that deep down inside we have to really struggle with ourselves and be like, I am worthy. I do deserve this. I deserve to make a lot of money. I deserve to travel the world. I deserve to go hang out with my family in Maui for 2 weeks because that's what the hell I want to do.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Love that. Now, looking at the big picture of the society right now, where do you think we are in the mindset? And which direction are we going?
We are in a new awakening.
Okay.
So I relate where we're at to the 60s, where it was a major conscious shift of the world. You know, when you talk to conservative Americans and they have this idea that the U.S. used to be good at some point, right? And when you ask them when is that, they're going to give you the same bullshit answer, which is the 50s. Back in the 50s, everything was good. Back in the 50s, you had this. Well, that was all a facade. That was all made up. And a lot of that was made up by television and movies because that's all they show, like Leave It to Beaver and stuff. But the reality is that life was not like that, right? At some point in the 60s, people started shifting their mind and said, well, maybe this whole thing is not what they're telling us. Maybe there's more to life other than just making money, getting a job, having the American dream, the white picket fence and everything else. Maybe there's more to that. Now, a lot of that had to do with the introduction of psychedelics. A lot of that had to do with the popularization of substances like marijuana that kind of open up your mind. But in a general sense, consciously, people were moving. Now, I think that because of what happened in 2020 with the lockdown, a lot of people got slapped in the face with truth. And a lot of times people realized a few things. Number one, I don't like this person that I'm here with. You know, I'm supposed to be stuck at home with this person and I can't go anywhere. Like, oh, man, I don't really like them. They didn't notice because they were at work, school, blah, 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 everything else. They might have had the opposite effect. Well, you know, I'm just dating her. I'm not really serious, but now I'm locked up. I can't see nobody else. Man, I love her. Like, I miss her more than I really thought I was. What happened, though, that happened with life, with jobs, with everything, because the whole world got shifted. The whole world got stopped.
I heard somebody say that, and it struck me hard because I hadn't thought about that yet, that particularly coming from Germany or from Europe, is that COVID had a bigger impact on the American way of living and the society than World War II.
Yep.
And it makes sense because World War II, a lot of people lost loved ones, of course, in the war. But in terms of the day-to-day life in the U.S., it didn't change.
No.
People just went more. They had a women's baseball team because the men were drafted into the military, and they worked more in factories to produce arms and things like that. But other than that, life did not change.
Yeah.
In Europe, it did, obviously, right? Everyone's house got bombed and everyone thing, and people lost all their loved ones, and total life completely went upside down. But that's since I born in 1970 and I have no recollection of that. Obviously, life was perfect again at that time. But you grow up with the stories of your parents and your grandparents of how everything was put upside down. But in the U.S., it didn't. Yet, COVID has put the life in the U.S. upside down, and it put everyone in completely different situations.
It made people look
change
inside.
and change their outlook on life. And you see that in the consumer behavior right now. You see that in the demand for land, for example. We flip land. So land is on fire because the need for space has skyrocketed since then. The need for like RVs, ATVs, toys, people just like have changed their outlook on life and are now, I don't know if you agree with that, but are now more focused on enjoying the now versus just working for 30 years.
Well, so like I said, the same thing that happened in the 60s is happening now. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, the early 2000s or whatever were basically like the 50s, where people were just kind of in that routine. They go to work, they come home, they watch Netflix all day, they go to the gym, they come back. Like it's the same routine. When you got shooken out of that, people were like, wow, I need to make a change. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. And having your own freedom, having your own land, having land for, in case something goes down, if you need to escape the city or whatever, like those are all things that came into the conscious mind. And like I said, right now we are in a shift where the old way is being conflicted with what people are going. For people like in my age, because I'm 40, I saw my parents who are baby boomers, I saw them buy into the American dream lie and then get stuck up their butthole, right before retirement. I mean, it's still happening to my mom right now. They keep on pushing back every year that, oh, yeah, well, you'll retire next year, and dangle the carrot. And then she comes all happy. And they're, oh, well, it's actually going to be another year now. It's actually going to be this. Or, yeah, if you retire right now, I know we promised you this, but we're only going to give you this. They were the last generation that actually fell for that. So people my age range, there's still people that follow that, but a lot more were like, well, maybe there's a different way. Maybe we can start our own businesses. Maybe we can do that. And then our children are now looking at it from that perspective. The possibility or the probability that your daughter ends up an entrepreneur is relatively high. My children are the same thing. My son is 20. He just started his landscaping company. And because they saw this shit. So we're shifting in a way now where colleges are starting to know that they're full of S. Carver doesn't give you anything more than any other place other than who you're connected with.
I predict, and I agree with those that predict that a third of the colleges is going to be out of business in the next 5 to 10 years.
I agree. It's probably closer to 10 to 20 because of just the culture of college. But I do agree with that the people are doing, look at like you see things like malls being closed all the time. The old style of doing things are going away. And that's part of the shift there. Now, one of the things that happened during COVID was people realized they weren't happy. And that was a big one because when you're able to just distract yourself with all these things, people realized they weren't happy. And that's one of the things that I noticed in the real estate investing thing was that, people are making money, but when they stop and they actually slow down, they're not happy. They need the distraction of constantly doing deals. And I made a post about a month ago where I said, some people do drugs to escape their problems, others start a business. Because the people that are starting a business, that's for a lot of them, it's a way not to deal with their actual issues. It's a distraction of, I got to solve all these other problems without ever solving the internal problem.
So the answer to you then is solve your internal problems first, and then you'll find out what you really want.
Yes. What you're really good at and what your purpose is here. When we chase money, we never get fulfilled in our purpose. True. And I remember I've been using mushrooms for about 8 years now. It started sometime after my dad passed away. And honestly, I had taken them recreational before then, but that particular time, they didn't work for me to have fun. It forced me to deal with everything that happened with my dad's passing. And from there, I started to do more research and I started kind of following that route. I bring that up because about 3 years ago, people kept on asking me to host retreats. I want to try that, but I'm too scared. I'll pay you. Well, I didn't know what I was doing the first time. I didn't even know if people were going to show up. I rented a cabin in Sedona, and I was just like, I hope I don't lose money. Like that was my thing, right? So I charged people really low, like $1,000, and I sold out. They showed up. Long story short, I made about $2,500 profit from my first retreat. That $2,500 made me feel so much better than six-figure checks that I had made in real estate. And a lot of it had to do with seeing the transformation that people went through the weekend. So who they came on Thursday, who they left on Sunday, that was hugely rewarding for me. And a lot of people that chase money, they're doing it because they're trying to fulfill these goals that have nothing to do with them. But once you figure out who you are, what truly makes you happy, what your skill sets are, now you can tap into those skill sets to make a living and now make an impact. When I'm doing these retreats, I'm not worried about the people and the money. The money's just extra. I love helping them grow. I love seeing their transformations. I love seeing them face their demons and get past those things. Like, I really, truly enjoy that. And the same thing goes with my coaching. Like, yeah, I make money from my coaching, but that's not why I started it.
Right.
We ran into each other a few weeks ago over in Houston. Mm-hmm. We were both speaking at the same event. You saw that I had my whole gang with me, right? I had like 15 of my students, which is freaking awesome. Part of that was that we rented a big old house and we all stayed together. As we stayed together, everybody starts talking, we're networking. And me and my business partner who founded the company, we're sitting there and we're like, man, financially, the company hasn't turned out the way that we wanted to. We've ran into a few different roadblocks, but the change that we're making in these people's life, how much they've grown. Some of them have been with us for 4 years now. And just like watching them grow and evolve, watching the people hit the stage, watching the people, how they went from struggling to doing one deal to now traveling the world and doing deals all over the place. That right there has no monetary value whatsoever. But once you figure out who you are, now it's a lot easier to then put that into a direction where you feel, and this is something that I had to have this conversation with myself. What is the best use of my skill set? Mm-hmm. Not what can I make more money on, because I would just become another guy selling a wholesale course or something like that. Like, yeah, that's easy. That's easy. Everybody wants to be in real estate. Everybody wants to be in real estate. Like, that's easy. But what's the best use of my skill set? Right. And when I started the Mindset Coach, that was really cool. They were really awesome. When I decided to host my retreat, it was really like an extension of that. It was like an extreme version of
and that is also a scalable business if you look at it. So if you want to take that big, you can. Obviously, the mushrooms are probably geographically restricted a little bit, right? Yeah. Where you need to do that. So within the laws of the different states that allow that, we're here in Arizona, which I don't know what the laws are actually.
So it's technically not legal here in Arizona, even though I host a lot of my retreats here in Arizona.
Right. Well, let's not say that out loud, but Colorado is just a few hours.
Colorado is just a few hours. Well, what I realize is that once again, I'm doing this with a good purpose, and I'm doing this to benefit people. Yeah. And I mean, like the places that I ran, I've had interactions with the local police over in Sedona. They know what we're doing. Like but the whole point of that is that I'm helping people. We're not just partying and, oh, yeah, we're getting effed up here at the house. Like, no, we're there with an intention to grow, to learn, to move forward.
But my point is that if you want to make that into a larger business that does where you do well while doing good, which is always our premise, but whatever we do, we want to we want to be transformational in the lives of those that we touch. Mm-hmm. So by doing that, this is a path that can be grown. That is a path that you can. And
actually, right before I drove over here, I was having a meeting with my team about growing this. I mean, right now we are in the process of working with some scientists from the University of California that want to take an actual study and show the physiological changes that happen. Because right now I have anecdotal evidence, right? People say, yeah, I go, it changes me, it showed me this, and that. But right now we're actually working for that purpose, to create a whole methodology, to create a whole thing where we can expand, where I can train other people to do what I do. Because really, as I said, to me, I haven't found anything that fulfills me more than really changing people's lives. Which in a way is what you do. You change people's lives. I've realized that there's tons of people out there that show you how to make money. So I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to show people with money how to actually live their life, how to enjoy their life. And one of the things that I realize is that, like, I know for a fact that I could make more money if I want to. It's not my it's not my priority, right? Now, because I'm living life, people always reach out to me, people that are way more successful than me. Man, I wish I could, man, the way that you live life, man, I really want to. And that's when I started to realize, like, money is important. Of course it is. Having the financial ability to travel and to do the stuff that I want to do, like that's always going to be important. But there's a whole different aspect outside of money. Yeah. And usually when you're poor, you don't understand those concepts, like taxes and everything else. Yeah, but you don't understand those concepts.
From a fundamental point of view, I mean, we talked about it and we went public about that just a little bit ago, which is that Michelle, co-founder of our company, was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. Right. So as a result of that, we are actually for 6 weeks in Germany to get a super advanced treatment to hopefully eradicate that illness, but it's freaking expensive. And we thank God every day, or whoever you want to call it. We thank God every day for having found and having had the drive and having had the clarity of mind to start our own business, to do our own thing, so that we can take 6 weeks and just freaking go to Germany. Yep. Right? And then we can take and pay for a treatment that altogether probably costs something like $70,000. Right? And because the insurance doesn't pay for it, but most people, if you tell that somebody the insurance doesn't pay for it, I'm not going to do it. Like because they don't understand the concepts of it. But that's one of the reasons we didn't start our business in order to pay for this. We started our business in order to be able to, one of the many reasons we started our business is in order to, if a medical emergency comes up, have access to the best medicine in the world and be able to just pay for it. Yeah. We started our business in order to have the time that we want to spend where we want to. That's why we spend a month in Hawaii. That's why we now can go 6 weeks to Germany. We started our business in order to live out our fullest life, our fullest skill set, et cetera, and of course, in order to change people's lives and so on. But yeah, if you live in poverty and you're just like living with the head above water, you don't see those things.
You don't see those things, but the problem that happens is that people then only focus on money. And then eventually it gets to the point where money has this really crappy habit of making you feel like it's never enough. And once you reach a certain level, then you're like, well, if I'm doing 10 million a year, why can't I be doing 20 million a year? Why can't I 10x my business? Why can't I do it? And it's not that you can't, it's do you really need to, right? And it's not like for any other reason other than if it brings you joy, peace, and happiness, and if you're able to build and scale your business to a point where now you're able to help more people, and now it becomes that big, then yeah, that makes sense. But a lot of people just focus on the money part. Now, on the same side, you can't just focus on happiness all the time, because then you don't have money, and then if you're having trouble paying your bills, you're probably not going to be a happy person. So there is a certain balance to this. And one thing that I've noticed, though, is that from the entrepreneur, especially from the real estate investor community, most people don't ever focus on the other side of their life. They just focus on the money. So that's where I saw the need for what I do. And really, there is nobody out there that focuses on specific mindset techniques for real estate investors. Right. Like that's my clients. That's who I am, because I've been a real estate investor for 15 years. I know the mental stuff that happens. And I also know that every single time that I leveled up, when I went from wholesaling to fixing and flipping to buying and holding to apartment complex to mobile homes to land development, those are all things that happened here first before they ever came in the natural world.
Just to be clear, though, when people hire you, they go to that part, to the first of the mindset part, but then ultimately they if they want to, they can still get the real estate advice from you.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, and so my program, because at first it started just specifically mindset, but I realized very quickly that 95% of my clients are real estate investors because they know me from that world, because that's where I come from, right? So then eventually we created a separate program which goes in contact with what we do. So it's all part of what we offer that is specifically for real estate investors. So I have specific content where I don't show you real estate techniques per se, but I do share, hey, these are how you can incorporate these mindset techniques with there. Part of that is that we have a mastermind, and once a month we get together where we talk real estate. Now, this is where we're going to talk deals. You have a deal, you have this, blah, 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 blah. This is how we're going to break it down. So we go in there and we talk about different aspects of real estate, different stuff. I've had people on there talk about creative real estate. I've had people talk about short sales and sub twos and all these other aspects of real estate where we get more into the nitty gritty. And I created a community within our community that is specifically real estate related. So if anybody's got any deals and raising, we've raised money from our group. We've JV with our group. People have bought and sold to each other within that group. Partnerships came from that group because that's what we've created as a bunch of real estate investors. But mind you, if you don't have the right mindset and you get a bunch of people together and everybody's greedy and everybody's looking out for themselves, you're not, even with the room full of people, it's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
And this is where, to me, it became very obvious that I needed to train people on their mindset, because with the right mindset, you can easily shift them to a place where now we can work together. Now we can grow together. We were sitting up there at the house in Houston. All of us are there. Ray was talking about his creative financing techniques that he's using to purchase houses with zero down. He's making a profit up front. He's creating cash flow notes on the back end. Like, he has this whole thing going, right? So he's breaking it down for people at the house, and somebody's like, well, why don't you do this? Well, yeah, somebody else said, well, why don't we do this? Before you knew it, in the end of the night, we're starting a bank. So
very cool. So one last thing. Now, you recently went through a pretty painful process yourself of losing a whole bunch of money.
Yes.
And how did that help you level up yourself?
So basically what happened was I got scammed. After everything is said and done, it's going to be close to $600,000 that I lost. So that was all my investors' money. So that was a very hard thing to grasp. When I found out that it actually happened, when I got the letter from the FBI, letting me know what was going on, that was a big shot to the ego. I consider myself a smart man. I've been in real estate for 15 years. Never once have I lost any of my investors' money, and especially not that amount. Like, fuck, that was crazy, right? So dealing with that took really everything that I had, all my teachings, all my learnings, to not go down a negative rabbit hole. When we make mistakes, our mind wants to focus on what went wrong. It always wants to focus on how dumb you were, what you could have done, what you could have seen, could have, would have, should have. And that perpetrated a lot of my mind. Through my many years of mindset training, though, I've learned that the easiest way to get past that, at least the first step, is to quiet the mind. Because if you're just listening to all the BS going over and over and over, it's just going to spiral you down a really, really negative rabbit hole. So, yeah, I lost $600,000 of my investors' money. First thing that I did was kind of quiet my mind, and I spent about 2 weeks really just calming my mind down, putting together what I was going to do, focusing on solutions as opposed to focusing on what happened. I reached out to my investors and I told them, hey, this is what happened. Instead of waiting for them to reach out to me, because we had a time frame when they were supposed to get their money back and stuff. And I called them. I called every single one of them, and I said, "Hey, this is what happened. I got screwed. I got scammed. I lost your money. I don't know when I'm going to get it back. I'll figure out how to get it back. But right now, this is what's happening." So after I called every single one of them, I told my students, because I'm very open and honest with them, "Hey, this is what happened. Here's what's going on." But I did also tell my students, right now, you're going to get to see all that stuff that I've been talking about, the mindset. It sounds all good and nice and pretty, but now you're going to get to see how it actually works. And I told them from the beginning, this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to me. Watch. I don't know how the hell I'm going to pay that money back. Because unfortunately, with COVID and then me splitting up with my old business partner, a lot of the holdings that we had in other states just really, we took a beating during COVID between the not being able to kick people out. And, we had people that on multiple houses that lived for over 2 years for free. And of course, those people trashed the house and everything else, right?
Yeah.
So I was not in a position. I didn't have the money liquid. I didn't have it. But luckily for me, though, I've learned the value of growing assets. So I had a few assets. I had a mobile home park. I had a few other properties. I had a few other deals that I was working on where I was able to sell off my interest on the deal, sell off my interest in the mobile home parks. So before you knew it, I had paid back my investors $400,000, and I'm in the process of paying them back the rest right now. They're expecting the next lump sum here at the end of the month, and then we're just moving forward.
That's what you didn't have to do, but I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's the right thing to do.
And here's the thing is, like, you're right. I didn't technically have to, with the type of deal that we did, because of the speed of the deal. Like, half of these investors I didn't even have a contract with. They were just people that knew me. They just wired me money and stuff, I could have been like, F you, sue me, and then I'll deal with it. I'm not in the mental space right now to deal with it, but these are people that trust me. Absolutely. These are people that value me, right? So what's crazy is that when it all happened, I realized that the world always works in awesome ways for me. Like, everything always works out for me, especially when they doesn't, which, once again, is a mindset. It's just a mindset. That's all it is. It's nothing different. There's other people that have gone through what I went through. And I know, because once I had the big balls to post it and talk about it, other people said, yeah, you know what? We've went through something similar. I'm going through something similar right now. But they didn't have the balls to put it out there. When I did, what that allowed to happen is that I removed all the shame that came with it. I to anybody's bullet who had any S to talk about me didn't have any more bullets, because I literally put it out there. Right. I called my investors, I told my students, and I put it out on social media. I got scammed. I lost money. What about it now? What that did, though, was that helped me really, and without knowing, it elevated me to a different level. Because once I lost that money, now that money wasn't that big of a deal. Meaning that I was like, okay, well, I lost $600,000. I could bitch and complain about it, but it is what it is. It happened. How am I going to solve it? How am I going to fix it? Well, if I do this and I sell here, and that's 50,000 there, and that's 20,000, 100,000 there, and that's a few 100,000 here, blah, blah, blah. Before you knew it, I was at 400,000, and I was like, okay, well, I have the ability. Well, now that amount of money is not that big of a deal, because I just pulled it out of my ass in a month. So, like, that's not that big of a deal if I want to go do another deal, right? And what it did was it elevated me mentally to get past that point. And one of the things about tests, though, and just let me say this, when we get tested in life, it's only there to show us where we are at. Mm-hmm. And many times, we think that we're further ahead than we are. And the test shows us that we're not.
Or it's really, I say, it's life really asking you, do you really want that next level?
Of course.
Are you ready for that next level? Yep. And it's going to throw everything against you to see if you're made of the right material to deserve to make. Now, we all deserve it, but to make it to the next level. Are you willing to do what it takes?
Yeah, and one of the things that I learned from this test about myself wasn't that I thought I was further ahead. It was actually that I was further ahead than I thought. Mm-hmm. Meaning that when the test came, based on how I responded to it, based on how I tackled it, based on how I was able to surpass it in the short amount of time that I was able to do it, I was like, man, I'm really underselling myself. Like, I am really a badass. And I really, like, I knew I was a badass, but I didn't know I was that much of a badass. Mentally, that elevated me to the next level. Right. The conversation of starting a bank, if you would have told me that 6 months ago, I would have been like, yeah, that's cute, but I don't know if I could do that. Now I'm like, yeah, no, for sure, it's happening. We're pulling money from Wall Street. Like, this is happening for sure. Right. And that's awesome.
And the other thing it does, when you put yourself out there like that, and it actually increases your credibility, it increases your trustworthiness, because people know you're not going to go run with their money. You're not going to go hide at it, but you made a mistake happens, or perhaps you didn't make a mistake, but just somebody scammed you, and now you communicated it honestly, directly, you lived up to it, you paid them back, and they're like, I bet you that half of the people that invested with you that now get their money back are ready to invest with you again.
Yeah, well, all of them, not half of them, all of them. Right? One of them, when I called him and told him, hey, buddy, I got scammed, he had let me borrow like $100,000 or whatever. Before I even paid him back, he's like, bro, Two things. Number one, that happened to me in the past, 5 years ago. I feel your pain. I appreciate you calling me. By the way, I have more money. Like, I have more money right now. I got a few other, some money that I have that I need to invest, and I want to invest it with you.
Yeah. That's
and
exactly.
because of me posting about it, it eventually led to there was somebody that I've been talking to online as a investor, right? A potential money lender. We've built a friendship because of my traveling, but we never met face to face. He saw my posts. He had commented on all my posts. He saw that I was going to be speaking in Houston, and he messaged me. He said, "Look, man, I have no reason to go to the event, but I will go to the event on one condition, that you make some time and we can go to dinner, we can go to lunch or whatever, and just me and you get to know." Well, long story short, we hit it off marvelously. And I had a friend of mine reach out to me and said, "There's your whale right there. Like, this guy loves the fuck out of you. He's got access to tons of capital." And because of what he saw outside, like, he was already kind of like, maybe I'll invest with you. We were already kind of there before. But once he saw what happened, because I posted about it, because he saw how I reacted, now why would you not want to invest with somebody like me? Absolutely. Knowing that I'm going to go out of my way to pay you back versus make a bunch of excuses and pretend like it never happened.
Exactly right. That's the key. All right, guys. So with that said, I think it's time to wrap up our podcast here. So we talked about mindset a lot. Didn't talk that much about real estate, but you know what? It makes perfect sense. Because if you don't get your mindset right, anything you do will fail eventually, or will at least, now if it not fails, it won't grow to the level that you want it to grow. So I think this was the perfect podcast with a perfect subject, with a perfect guest, talking about how to get your mindset right, or your program, how it's called again?
Unfuck Your Mindset.
There we go. There we go.
I called it that to be very direct to the nose.
Of course, and that's how you are.
And one of the things here with the real estate investors is that I'm able to work with every coach and teacher out there, because they know that if I can help my students get the correct mindset, they're going to be able to take the information that I give them and take it, as you said, to the next level. Right. So I appreciate the opportunity for being on the podcast here.
Quick question: how do people get a hold of you?
So there's a few ways. You can actually go to on Instagram is probably the easiest way. @Cashflow Creator is my handle. So you can go ahead and check that out. You can go to unfuckyourmindset.com and check out what we got going on. Actually, if you go to the number 3 simplesecrets.com, you can get my I have a free mini course. Right. So I created a mini course for the event that I spoke at, and it's a mini course to talk about the mindset, particularly when it comes to real estate investors.
So we'll put the links into the show notes here, into the comments and to the description. With that said, guys, that completes our show today. Make sure if you listen to this on iTunes, you give us a 5-star review, you subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button, and thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. See you guys in the next show.